Hello and welcome to another episode of the Doster, T.O. and Fanta podcast. That is the DTF podcast. It is Tuesday morning, May 10th. I am live here. My name is Rob Doster. I have John Fanta. I have Terrence Oglesby here with me. It was a relatively quiet weekend in the world of college basketball, but there are a couple things that we need to talk about in regards to the NIL. I'm going to set a timer when we start this. We are only going to spend 10 minutes on NIL. I am so over talking about NIL and collectives and all of that nonsense. We're also going to get into some of the most influential draft decisions that are left for players testing the waters. And we're going to talk about the new coaching hires. We are doing a series on that over on our YouTube channel on the Field of 68. So we're going to break all of that down. But first and foremost, before we get into everything, John Fanta, Terrence Oglesby, how are you guys? How was your weekend? Was it great?
Excellent. Was covering some lacrosse down in DC. It was a big weekend of lax. It was a big weekend of horse racing, which was just absolute insanity. It's on my bucket list to get to the Derby. Have you been to the Derby, Terrence?
I have not. My mother has been to Churchill Downs and she went to the Derby, but she was working in Louisville at the time. So no, I have not been. I want to go because my wife's big into horses, but I have not made the trip yet. We'll all have to go. That would be a heck of a trip.
I would love a book report after all this from our friends at Bet Rivers, because I'm just wondering, there's going to be a documentary, if not a two-parter on this win and on this Kentucky Derby in particular. We talked about how college basketball needed this past Final Four with Duke and Carolina. Horse racing really needed and needs a clean week here. This race in the Kentucky Derby, like, I want to know the guy who was crazy enough to put a couple $100 on this horse and ends up coming home to the wife and saying, our next 5 years are covered. Because those are the stories that I would love to hear. Whose life did it change? But it's just, it was a weekend of everything but college basketball, guys. Big fight. You had horse racing. You have NBA playoffs are in full force. Man, Grizzlies came so close to evening up that series, but the Warriors find a way. You got hockey going on. It's that time of year. It's why people like the Final Four to me is such a starting point, because it launches a spring of activity. But I'm good. Covering some college lax was fun.
Yeah. What's that been about? Like, you and Goodman and Norlander keep tweeting about lacrosse news. Why is this happening? Can you confirm to the people why there keeps being lacrosse stories and tweets about lacrosse coaches coming across my timeline? Because I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, what happened is St. John's let their coach go last week. And he had been there for 16 years, and his conference record was something in the range of 20-70. So in lax, you don't play many games. So people would look for 16 years. You only played 90 conference games. You play like 6 conference games a year. Lacrosse is a sport that I'm not going to call it easier, but for the student athlete, they play once a week, maybe twice a week. They're not playing as often as some of these other sports are. So this guy over 16 years at St. John's went about 20-70. So they let him go, but the men's basketball SID at St. John's sent out the email alert to his full distribution list. So because there was not much going on last week on a Wednesday, and nobody likes to report scandal more than our friend Goody, he had to tweet this out, because nobody likes to also report things that are surrounding St. John's University basketball than Jeff Goodman. And so he wanted to have a little bit of fun. So then Norlander got in on the fun because there wasn't much going on. It was a dead hour. And these guys had to jump in on what was St. John's. And then in the same hour, Providence also letting their coach go. These guys had to jump in on the scoops because there wasn't that much going on in college hoops. We have reached the stage, a brief stage of the off season, albeit because there's something still going on every hour. These guys had 2 free hours on Twitter. They saw this story start to break. They saw it with St. John's. They thought of crazy St. John's fans, because let's face it, Rob, NTO, among all of the things to try and transform this back into college basketball, you could say whatever you want about St. John's, but there are 2 things you can say about St. John's. One is They're very compelling in the offseason. They've brought in Andre Curbelo from Illinois. We haven't really talked about that on this pod. They brought in David Jones from DePaul, quality player. They have a kid named AJ Storr coming in, who's a big-time recruit.
Good player.
And they have a couple of others. The point is, between their passionate fan base and their offseason moves, they're always compelling. And the second thing is that typically during the regular season, it goes this way, but it's very entertaining to watch because there's always some things to watch with St. John's basketball because they play around New York and people pay attention to them and people get their hopes up. And then like New York sports, things typically go the other way. We will see if this upcoming season, there's a reversal of script. I don't know. Andre Curbelo in Queens. It's interesting with Posh Alexander. Rob's look on his face. What is that?
I mean, look, when you're trying to find a way to play winning basketball that's built on a defense, the very first guy that I think of is Andre Curbelo. I don't know if there's a more savvy, defensive oriented, kind of calm presence at the point guard spot.
Would you play
Alexander?
Would you play Curbelo and Alexander together?
Well, they're going to be your two best players. You have to.
You're gambling all over the map. You're going for every steal. You're leaving the rim wide open. They better have some rim protectors. Like Posh can guard. I love Posh Alexander, by the way. I got to watch him several times last season, but Andre Curbelo, he's going for every steal. He's wildly undisciplined. He's so much fun to watch. And in their helter-skelter, guys, they were number one in the country in pace.
I don't know.
I think they're going to get even faster, Rob. They're going to get even faster.
They were
number one in the country in pace. They're going to be faster.
Are we really calling Andre Curbelo fun to watch? I think,
love it. Dude, it is
the reason you watch Andre Curbelo is because you never know what's going to happen.
It's right.
That's what makes it fun.
You know that new meme out there? It's like, don't never tell them what your next move is going to be. Right? Have you guys seen that? You never let him know what your next move is going to be. That's what Andre Curbelo is, because you never know what his next move is going to be. He could make this unbelievable spinning layup where there's this 360 in the air. He goes between two guys, gets it off the backboard with this ridiculous amount of spin. And you say, I have no idea how he did that. Or what he could do is, instead of finding a wide open guy for a layup, he might just pump the ball into the second deck. Sure, all of these things could happen. That's why you watch Andre Curbelo. You never know
what
it
happens at a 2-to-1 ratio. I'm living with it. If it happens at a 2-to-1 ratio, I'm living with it. Turnover is a turnover, whether he dribbles it off his foot, kicks it into 15th row, or just hands it to the other team. Turnover is a turnover. How he does it, I don't care. I think how fast St. John's, and I love this, Fanta. I'm just going to let New York people take off with this because you said, St. John's, they just go up in the off season's a lot of fun, and then like all New York sports. I heard that. Like all New York sports, it just kind of starts to go downhill during the whole thing. It is true, but I'm not going to let it slide because no one wins by there because Rob just started talking. But watch out, New York. Fanta's ready to come for you.
No one wins the offseason like a team from New York City. It happens in every single sport.
I want the New York teams to do well, but I've been here since 2013. I haven't seen any sort of thing close come to a championship other than the Mets making the World Series 1 year and they lost to the Royals. The thing is, St. John's, this is what's fun about St. John's. 2 years ago is the thing that's most absurd. They go on some crazy surge. They win like 7 of 8 games, 6 of 7. They won at UConn on MLK Day. I remember watching the game. It was one of the few games on. They go to UConn, they win. Everybody starts talking about them. Villanova comes to Queens. Remember they beat Villanova? Like Alexander just owns Gillespie. And I'm thinking to myself, we're all thinking to ourselves, is this team going to find a way to just get into the edge of the garage into the tournament? Because this is what happens. They lose at home to DePaul and the season ends. 3 weeks of work, and a great pub. They're playing really well. You're bought in. You're starting to be like, yeah. St. John's could win the Big East tournament. They could come out. It was peak New York sports. That's enough St. John's chatter. But the point is, Curbelo just adds to the flair. He adds to the flair. You do not know what the hell you're going to get. Him and Alexander, who's going to be the alpha there? Because Alexander's the alpha guy.
Oh, it's going to be Posh.
It's going to be Posh, but Curbelo's got to then, it's almost like he has to pull back. Does he pull back? I don't freaking know.
I don't think he has that button to pull back.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
There's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight on the court at some point. Those two are going to end up fighting on the court at some point. And I'll tell you this.
But the point is, back to your lacrosse question, it was because St. John's changed coaches and not like Colorado or another random school. Goodman saw St. John's and it's like,
Hey, look, we could tell some stories to you guys about what Goodman does in the offseason when he gets bored and he has his phone by him. It gets a little reckless and a little ridiculous. And
you can never tell if he's being real or sarcastic.
No,
you had a hell of a quip the other week, Fanta, when you were like, "Oh, we don't want to know about your search history, Goodman." After you got Twitter shot,
Twitter hacked. Yeah, that happened since our last pod too.
Yeah, all right, hack. We'll talk about it at the end. We're gonna close with that. We're gonna get that full story.
The hackening.
Yeah, the hackening. Before we do that, look, we got to talk about this NIL stuff that is happening. For the people that are unaware, the Division I Board of Directors released new guidelines regarding the involvement of boosters in recruiting. I have a quote right here that kind of sums up everything you need to know. This is from University of Georgia president, who is also the board chair. I think is it Jerry Moorhead? We're going to go with Mr. Moorhead. While the NCAA may pursue the most outrageous violations that were clearly contrary to the interim policy adopted last summer, our focus is on the future. The new guidance establishes a common set of expectations for the Division I institutions moving forward, and the board expects all Division I institutions to follow our recruiting rules and operate within these reasonable expectations. Essentially, what they are trying to do is to get boosters out of the process of getting players to different schools and getting transfers going to different programs. They basically want to limit the influence that collectives have on recruiting. No inducements from boosters, no saying like Ruiz, the guy at Miami. John. Yeah. No saying you can get $400,000 a year for 2 years if you come to Miami from me. They want to get that out of the game. And it sounds like they're going to try to retroactively punish some of these boosters that have been heavily involved, although it does not seem like it's going to be everybody, since it kind of became this is what you have to do to survive in this marketplace. So
that's such a strange thing, man. It's such a strange thing. Like, how are you going to distinguish between NIL and these things, which is the whole thing? Sorry to interrupt you, Doster. I know I'm the worst, but like we were talking about Nasir Cunningham. I was talking to somebody the other day. He's the number one player in the class, I think 24, either 24 or 25, one of the two. And he signs with this overtime elite league in Atlanta, but he declines for the pay for play option to where he can still get NIL money. So theoretically, he could still get paid by the exact same people, but through a separate entity. And then it's like, well, it's just NIL money. So like, where do you draw the line in these things? And the thing I figured, the only thing that you're going to be able to do, guys, is if the NCAA actually comes up with an acknowledging the pay for play. Because what you do then is then you can rein in some of these collectives and you can set salary caps and the players can unionize. The rest of this stuff, like the horses are out of the barn, guys. Like, what are you going to do? Like it's done. These things are going to happen. And for you to say like, you can't induce kids to come to a certain school because of particular NIL opportunities, guys, they're going to go to some of these bigger schools and bigger cities because of the NIL opportunities. It only makes sense. And so it's a very confusing time for everybody. I don't think there's any way to get it back.
You're never going to get it back. You're never going to get it back. And one of the issues that we're running into right now is that there was never any structure put in place. Like if these rules were put in place 10 months ago, where they basically said, look, no matter what happens, you cannot have boosters involved in the recruiting process. And you made that explicit and you punished people and you sent out sanctions the first time that one of these popped up. And I'm not saying that collectives shouldn't exist. I think that that's a good way to kind of be able to reward players that have big games and big seasons. Like essentially, I was talking to one guy involved with it, and the way that it works at that program, I don't want to say which program it is, because I don't know if he'd be okay with me talking about it. But essentially, what happens is you have this collective, right? They have a pool of money that they give to players for podcast appearances, for media appearances, for doing different shows, for doing different interviews. And if you have a kid that goes out there and let's just say, I don't know, someone drops 35 in a game, right? And then all of a sudden they want you on this like team specific podcast, then you could pay that kid $5,000 to go jump on that podcast. And that is basically it's pay for play, but that's how you kind of get around it, where there is a reward because you're promoting something on these podcasts and these different platforms.
But here's where the issue is, because all these coaches have these different boards that go on, like deflections, charges taken, all that stuff. Like, are you devaluing that other stuff, or is it just the guy that gets 35?
It's however it works. I'm basically just saying, like, that's kind of how this works. There's other programs I've been told where Every member of the football team basically has essentially a $60,000 salary is what they're getting is the base. And then every student athlete is getting like 5 to 10K if you are just a part of this program and on scholarship there as an athlete. But go ahead, Fanta, you got something to say. Go ahead.
All right. You remember when you were in grade school? I'm going to get you into like 4th or 5th grade. And it was at the end of the year or during the Christmas time. And you had your big class party, right? And if you were like me at my grade school, at some point in your class, one of your class parties, whatever the grade was, they'd bring out sheet pizzas, okay, to the class. Big, remember this, guys? Big. If you're in a class, you had a pizza party. Bring out the big pizzas. And
sheet pizzas,
sheet pizzas, like sheet pizzas, meaning.
Oh, I thought you were assuming the pizza's gender. I thought you said sheet pizzas.
Nope, sheet pizzas. They'd bring out the sheet pizzas. Stay with me here, and at the first party, you'd be a pig, and you know what? You would have a great time. You'd be eating your pizza. You'd be rolling. Then you get to party 2 or 3, and because they ran out, and because somebody went back and was like, I only have 1 slice. Now all of a sudden they're like, well, 2 slices per kid. But if you were like me and the other guys in the class, you're like, screw that. I've been taking 6 all along. I'm not going to start to pull back. That's what this announcement was yesterday.
Yep.
This announcement was attempting to put rules on something you can't put rules on unless you collectively bargain. Let me list the 2 most important lines of this NCAA release that openly admit that they're flawed. Number 1. Here, hold on. If I can find it.
This is great podcasting, Fanta.
I know, right. The board directed the enforcement staff to review the facts of individual cases, but to pursue only those actions that clearly are contrary to the published interim policy, including the most severe violations of recruiting rules or payment for athletics performance. In other words, the most severe violations of money and of tampering are going to be the ones that we review. In other words, you're saying you can't possibly legislate everything that's gone on in the NIL space.
No.
So you're just going to take on the most severe ones. And then the second one.
Well, hold on. Before you go on, here's what they're basically saying.
Miami.
Don't fucking make it public. Like, if you're going to do your dirt, do what you got to do. But stop going on all these national radio shows and saying, I paid $400,000 a year for Nigel Pack. Then you have situations like Isaiah Wong being like, I want more money than that. No, like, come on, just keep it quiet. That's all you got to do. If John Ruiz's dumbass didn't get out there on every single platform possible, telling people how much money he has and how much he's spending on these players, we would not be necessarily. Well, the NCAA would be cracking down on it, but it would not be something where they're like, okay, we got to get this shit done now because we look like fucking idiots. That's what it is.
The second one is, while the NCAA may pursue the most outrageous violations that were clearly contrary to the interim policy adopted last summer, our focus is on the future. Listen to that language. While the NCAA may pursue, you are openly admitting that you can't have any uniformity in your approach, that you may pursue one outrageous case, but you may not pursue another. How does that make it any fair? How is that fair? This is not fair. There's no legislation on this. And then in the release, they say, it's on you, the schools. It's on the schools because we're the NCAA and we don't actually have any control. So
no,
schools,
they don't.
You're the ones.
Anyone?
You're the ones. Schools, you've got to report this. Schools, you've got to uphold your standard. What standard? There is no standard, and there is no way to properly legislate this. This is like the person that's trying to be your parent. Every child that either has divorced parents or unfortunately doesn't have a parent or because of some situation has somebody try to be a guardian, and it's in every movie and TV show of, you're not actually my dad, and the person storms off. The NCAA is trying to be everybody's dad right now. And guess what, Dad? You have problems yourself. Get out of my life.
Yeah, no, I agree with a
That's
lot of
what
what
it
you
is.
said. Yeah, no, you're right. That is what it is. The one thing I do want to say is, Tio, you made a very important point. I think we got about a minute and a half here before I'm ending this NIL conversation. The
Can
end
we get back
game
to
here-
St. John's?
the
No.
end game here is going to be, if you really want to get this under control and you really want to make it normalized and you really want to have any kind of structure to the system, what you have to do is accept the fact that college athletes, especially the men's basketball and college football players, are pros. That this is
Yeah.
not just student athletes anymore. You need to accept that fact. Stop trying to hide behind this narrative that these are regular students, right? Accept that they're employees. Allow them to collectively bargain. Allow them to be able to have a some kind of salary cap. Allow them to create terms of engagement with these schools and with these programs and with the NCAA. Allow them to have some kind
It
of
won't
structure
be with-
so you can sign enforceable contracts that protect everybody, that protect the school, that protect the people that are dropping those bags, and to protect the players themselves. That's what you have to do.
But it won't
It's
be
never
with
going to
the
happen.
NCAA. It won't be with the NCAA because that very structure goes against everything
Yes.
that their foundation is based on. They
Yes.
are
There's
not
nothing you can
able to
do.
call it pay for play. This is pay for play. And until they acknowledge what it is, this is never going to work under their umbrella, which is why college athletics, as we have known them, are in the greatest jeopardy they've ever been in.
Nice job ending that one out.
Yep. Nice job.
Perfect.
Yeah, and 10 seconds of it was me looking for a quote.
You said nice job banging that one out. I was going to say, yeah, we've Tio's heard that one before.
Got to be quick. Got to be quick.
All right, guys. We let's keep it moving. I'm so over this NIL conversation, but it feels like it's the only thing we have to talk about at this point.
No,
all right.
it's not. We got plenty to talk
Oh,
about.
we got
St.
lots of stuff.
John's is going to be a freaking bunch of road runners. It is going to be
Listen,
amazing.
Listen,
I
if we
can't
have to-
wait
If
to
we have
watch
to spend
St.
one
John's
more minute
play
on
next
St.
year.
John's,
Yeah.
you guys are all fired, and I'm gonna go hire
But man,
podcast.
Kenny Pom Poms.
Kenny Pound Bombs. All right, let's talk about the most influential draft decision for guys that are still kind of testing the waters, that have not made it clear that they are leaving. I asked you guys to come up with your three most important and biggest names. TL, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Just give me one, and we'll kind of roll through, and we'll each we'll talk through them. Actually, just give me your top three, and we'll all kind of talk.
Okay, so I went with three schools because I'm the worst. First of all, I think
I bet you were so much fun in school, huh? When you were like, "Hey, Tio, I need you to do a book report on this," and you're like, "Yeah, you know what? I instead of doing a book report, I solved this math problem."
I have a great
Never.
story. A great
Never.
story behind a book report. Go ahead.
No, okay.
Oh, God.
All right. So one that I'm really interested in because I think he needs an extra year. And I think if he stays one more year, he'll end up being a lottery pick, is Max Christie at Michigan State.
Mhm.
This guy needs time. I think he needs to realize he needs time. I realized that he was the number one shooting guard in the country coming out of high school. You could see the tools were there. He's got great length. I think one more year with Izzo, with him getting comfortable, with him putting some weight on his body, I think he could have a terrific sophomore season. I think he's a guy that will get drafted if he stays in because he's got a lot of measurables and he's got a soft touch and the tools are there. But I think one more year of production, one more year of playing under Izzo could really do him a lot of good. So I think the biggest one, maybe in terms of both his team and his individual development, I think Max Christie's a guy that needs to stay one more year.
Is he Jaden Ivey / Johnny Davis kind of a situation?
I could, he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much, but I could see him getting anywhere from 14 to 17 and a half a game next year because of his ability to shoot it. Like he would have spurts, guys, of being really good. And then he would have spurts of where he would just disappear from the face of the earth and nobody knew where he went. So like, that's a guy that I really feel moving into next year. If he decided to come back, I still think he's going to be a productive NBA player because a lot of the things that he has, the NBA values. But I also think like if he comes back for one more year, he could have a great season.
Yep. I like that one. Fanta, give me one.
Dalen Terry from Arizona, because if he comes back, he can be a first-team All-American caliber player, somebody that you're talking about as one of the best players in the country and somebody that can lead Arizona to a Pac-12 championship and beyond. I think that Terry is a really interesting prospect right now. I think he's a really good player. but I think he stands to benefit by coming back to college, both for his skill set and for the money that he can guarantee himself in the NIL space and the face that he can be in college basketball. I love Terry's game. I really do. And if you look at his numbers and the metrics, if you take a deep dive on his overall game, guys, he has a growing package. I think he's one of the guys that with another year of college experience ends up catapulting himself to even more dollars in the NBA draft. So Dalen Terry is a name that I'm looking at Arizona that has a big decision, but I think it could be slightly beneficial. I'm thinking like a 65-35 here, where 65 says go back to college. Dalen Terry, it'd be great to have you back in college basketball. I think you can benefit. I don't think you hurt yourself either way, but I think the rewards could potentially be greater if you give yourself another season of college hoops. That's a decision I'm really looking at, guys, for the landscape of Arizona and the Pac-12.
I think it's huge for Arizona if he comes back, because if you look at what's kind of on that roster heading into next season, I mean, you basically have a bunch of guys that were freshmen and sophomores last year with the two Bellises, with Omar Ballo, with Kirk Kreese and all those guys. So having someone that can kind of be that calming presence is big. To me, the obvious name here is Drew Timme. Because I think that eventually he probably does end up coming back to school. I don't know. I just don't know if he's an NBA player with kind of the way
he's not.
And if you look at what they have with Gonzaga, with Hunter Salas and Nolan Hickman, if you can combine those two as sophomores with Drew Timme at the 5, all of a sudden you're looking at, once again, a team that should be top 3 in the country. But that one's too obvious to me. I'm going to go with Marcus Sasser at Houston. Sasser was a guy that his season ended right around the new year, right? Did he break? I think he broke his foot, or was it broke? Yes. He broke something in a lower extremity.
It was shortly after that Alabama loss.
Yeah. So he broke something in a lower extremity that ended his season way too early. He averaged 17 points, a couple assists, shot 43% from 3, was kind of an on-ball player, was exactly what Houston looks for when it comes to that kind of lead guard role. And if he comes back and you get Tron Mark back with the way that Jamal Shed played, and with all of the big guys that like Houston just has an endless supply of 6'8" dudes that are tough as shit and crash the glass. You put Marcus Sasser on that team, I think we're looking at a team that is legitimately like right there as the favorite, the legitimate favorite to win the national title heading into next season.
Let me ask you guys a question here for a second. Let's do an exercise, because this is the exercise that people should be doing when they're thinking about this decision. Is Drew Timme an NBA player?
No.
Okay. Could Drew Timme make 7 figures worth of money by coming back to college?
I don't know the situation up there, but I would assume it would be enough to where he probably more than the rookie minimum. How's that?
Could Drew Timme make as much money if he does what he plans to do, and if Gonzaga does what they normally do? Could he make those types of dollars that the other top players in college basketball are making this upcoming season? Could Drew Timme make that kind of money?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any % chance of a guarantee that Drew Timme makes that kind of money by going pro?
Yes.
Is there any % chance?
No.
Zero.
All you need is one team to fall in love with what you can do. Right? No one thought Jordan Poole was going to end up being a first-round pick. He was a first-round pick, right? All you need is one team to fall in love with your ability, especially if you're a guy that can be stashed overseas or something like that and is okay with that. So all you need is one team to fall in love with what you can do, right?
What's the better bet?
I think he would be better off coming back to school. You could be a legend. You can certify yourself as being the guy that is going to forever be associated with Gonzaga's Final Four national title run. You can put yourself in the conversation for greatest college basketball players of all time. You can set yourself up. He probably already has, but you can set yourself up for appearance fees and all of these different things the same way that Tyler Hansbrough kind of has done. He's always going to be able to make his money. And you never know. Maybe if he has a 3-point shot, he gets a little bit quicker on his feet.
Sure.
He could be someone that could be a first-round pick down the road.
He's somebody that'll end up. He's somebody who needs to capitalize on NIL, because he's somebody that's going to end up in the ACB in Spain, playing for Gran Canaria and making, $350,000 to $500,000.
Exactly. He's got. Let's call a spade a spade. In today's NBA, he probably has a 20% chance, if that. And I'd probably say 10. I'm trying to be nice. But I mean, Drew, acknowledge your game. You are not fast-footed, okay? And you're somebody who plays the college game at a terrific level, but the game just doesn't match up with 2022 NBA. Come back to school. Be one of the faces. If not, make an effort to be the face of the sport. Keep growing that mustache. Just for Men, Old Spice, they will all give you a phone call, buddy. You'll make a ton of money. You'll win a lot of games. And maybe you can be the guy that charges Gonzaga to the mountain that they've never been on. Like, at the end of the day, what's the incentive to play at Gonzaga for a player like Drew Timme? To do something that hasn't been done. Win the damn thing. So I think it's a total win-win-win if you come back to Gonzaga. You are staring at a blackjack hand, right? And the dealer is asking you if you'll, because he's got an ace, and the dealer is saying, do you want the even money? Go take your even money. Don't get greedy. Don't get greedy, man. Take the even money. You're going to come out with a large chunk of change.
I agree. I also think
I
think he should absolutely 100% go through the process and get all the information that he can. Go take your workouts, go take visits,
Everybody should.
Yeah, get your interviews with the people in the front offices. Go do everything you can, get all the information you can, meet all the people you can. At the end of the day, the more relationships you have, the more people you know, the more conversations you can have, the more you get in front of these people and showcase who you are as a person, the better off you are. I had one more guy I want to listen to, T.O. You can go. I think Jalen Williams from Arkansas is quietly like, will have as much impact, whether or not he comes back, will have as much impact on what college basketball is in 2022-23 as anybody. I mean, look, that guy, Frank Martin, when we had him on, he said it best. He's like, that dude's not super athletic. He doesn't really pop off the page, but he is the best defender in the SEC because he is always in the way. Right. And I just thought that was such a perfect way to phrase it. How many charges? He took like 60 charges this year.
I loved what Musselman said about him. He's like, hey, we love what he does, but just for his longevity, we need him to take less charges. That might be the only player I've ever heard in the history of basketball where the coach was like, hey, dude, take less charges.
Yep.
That's the guy's unbelievable. Great defender. And they need him because of everything they have coming in. Like that super star-studded freshman class that's coming in. They need that veteran presence, kind of the settle down guy. And he is that.
He's not like your traditional rim protector,
right?
But he is a rim protector because of how many charges that he can take. And when you combine that with all of the length and athleticism that Arkansas is going to have with some of, Nick Smith coming in, Anthony Black coming in, Jordan Walsh coming in. They got the Mitchell twins transferring. They got the kid from Arizona State coming in. I'm forgetting a couple of other freshmen they have. Like, there's a lot of length and athleticism on that roster, and when you combine all of that with having a rim protector, that's what made them the best defensive team in the ACC.
Right. Well, there's two. Like Brad Brownell, who I worked for 2 years, he would always say there's two ways to protect the rim. You can either take charges and be in the right spot, or you can be above the rim. We that Sweet 16 year, we had two guys. One was Eli Thomas, and he was a great shot blocker. And then off the bench, we would bring in a guy named Mark Donnell, who transferred in from Michigan, who was a great charge taker. So you didn't really lose a whole lot of rim protection because Mark would always get over there and take charges. So I think both are equally valuable rather.
All right. You guys have anything else written down before we move on?
two. Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Fanta.
So my player is 19 years old. My player averaged over 10 points per game during Big Ten play and shot 39% from beyond the three-point arc. And as a defender, he grew as the season went on. He's 6'9". He fits the bill of a 3-and-D guy in the NBA. He's 19. He's got a decision to make. My player's Caleb Houston, who heads to the NBA draft combine next week as an interesting name, a trendy name. But if he comes back to Michigan with Hunter Dickinson, sometimes Wolverine fans don't necessarily value the talent that they had on their team. That Michigan team came on. They came on as the season went on. They started to perform like the team that we thought that they could be. If Houston comes back, guys, And he averaged double figures in conference play as a really good defender, shot the three nearly 40% during league play. I think he could blossom into an all Big Ten first team type of player if things break right for him. And him and Dickinson together, Michigan's backcourt has a level of unknown heading into next year, a big level of unknown. I don't know what to expect from that team in their guard play. But if you've got Houston and Dickinson, Moussa Diabate's gone. If you've got Houston and Dickinson, you've got a shot. I'm watching Caleb Houston's name.
Yep.
All right. I got one. I don't think he's going to come back, but I think because of some of the other losses that his team took, I feel like he could have a much bigger role. Peyton Watson at UCLA, who's a really talented kid. I don't think he's coming back, but I think he could benefit from being a larger part of their offense there because Juzang's gone. I can't remember what Jaime Hawk is. He's going to stay, right?
He's back.
Yeah, so he's back. Yeah, but you get a bigger role in the offense. I think he could benefit. And then, guys, this one's in ACC country, and it has a lot to do with both these two players and their current coach. Terquavion Smith and Darian Sebron are both very talented. Terquavion Smith is very skinny. He's 6'4". He's listed at $160. I think he's skinnier than that, but he's a big-time scorer. NC State they don't want them back. They need both of those guys back because they lost Manny Bates. They don't have a whole lot. Keats has lost all three assistant coaches this offseason, all three. So he's having a completely new lineup. You don't really know what the Wolfpack have coming back. Both of those guys could benefit. I think Sebron, out of the two, he's really rangy. He can do a lot of different things on the floor. He's a little bit like Dalen Terry at Arizona, kind of the same kind of player that's good with the ball, can do a lot of other things, can score it, sure, but his value comes from doing everything. He's a guy that, to me, screams the NBA if he can shoot it, which we don't know if he really can yet. And then Terquavion Smith, because he can score it, shows some value potential. But both of those guys, I'm really intrigued to see, because if those guys leave, NC State doesn't have a lot. And Keats needs to win this year.
Yep. I have two more real quick. One is David Roddy, who I think can be an All-American at Colorado State next season if he decides to come back. I kind of think that he ends up staying in the draft. He strikes me a little bit as someone that will be just like a quintessential role guy at the end. Yeah. Just have him out there, do a job. He makes some threes. He's switchable defensively. He can do some different things. The other one, Patrick Baldwin, he's declared for the draft. He's also entered the transfer portal. He was a guy that was a top 5 recruit in the country heading into last season, followed his dad to Milwaukee. They were absolutely atrocious. He had a really bad year, but he's 6'9". He can really, really shoot it. And if he doesn't end up getting any kind of guaranteed spot or an assurance that he's going to get a guaranteed deal from the NBA draft, I think it would make sense to come back to school, because somebody is going to find a way to make sure that he gets something heading into next season. And you never know. When you're that tall and you can shoot that way, there's always a chance that you could end up climbing up those draft boards. So I would not be surprised to see him come back to school. And look, if he does, that's immediately the best transfer available on the board. All right, let's get into some of these new coaching hires. I want to know who you guys think out of the new coaches that have been hired at the high major level, right? I want to know who you guys are willing to bet your house on in terms of them finding success at the college level. Tio, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
Guys, I developed somewhat of a coach crush on Todd Golden of Florida. Whenever we got to interview him, I thought he was really bright. I thought he was sharp. He had a charisma about him, which you need. I feel like we are about to pick him. Is that what you're doing over there, Fanta?
I was not going to pick him.
Oh, okay. No,
I love Todd Golden. Trust me, it's a great pick. I'm not going to
think I really just because he had a way about him. It's hard to really pinpoint that, but guys that can take guys with you, guys who think outside of the box, guys who look like he's going to be able to recruit and find guys. He had a heck of a story about Anthony McLemore at Auburn, how he was the guy, he was the backup and ends up starting for him at the Final Four. I thought that was really cool. His ability to find guys, and the SEC that's so rugged, if you can find a diamond or two to play along with some of these guys that you're going to be able to get, I think that plus his analytical approach, plus all these different things, I think he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on, and somebody that's going to have Florida in the second round of the tournament consistently.
Well, Golden was mine as well, but
okay, that's why.
the one thing about this cycle was I thought that many schools hit some home runs. So if you're asking me, because the question is the one guy that I can bet on that he will find success at the college level, it's easy because he's a college head coach and the program is a winning program. So if I can't pick Todd Golden to bet on, then I'm betting that Sean Miller at Xavier is going to be a successful ride. Here's why. Xavier is a staple to the NCAA tournament. They had missed it the last 4 years. That's because Travis Steele failed. That was the longest gap that Xavier basketball has had in missing the NCAA tournament since 1982, since the early 1980s. In other words, over the last 3 decades, Xavier has been one of the most underrated, really solid jobs in the country. They're committed to winning in basketball. They spend a lot of money in basketball. Walk into the Cintas Center and you will quickly learn it is run like a professional organization. Their desire to win in hoops. Does Sean Miller have some things that are hanging over his head? Yes, he does. And we'll see what the results of those things are. I think based on what's happened to others, I don't think it's going to be that severe. And I don't think Xavier makes that hire unless Greg Christopher, who's on an NCAA ethics committee, and the Xavier athletic director, unless he checks in with some people to make sure that it's going to be all right at the end of the day. Xavier's a winning program. Before 2018, they had been to 12 of the last 13 NCAA tournaments. Chris Mack had them as a 1 seed. And as an 11 seed, got them to an Elite 8. Sean Miller knows what Xavier is and knows how successful they can be. I think that the Musketeers are going to crack into a top 25 poll at some point next season or a couple times next season. I just think that it's a bear that's waiting to wake up. That's always been a bear, but the problem is they just haven't had the right leader the last couple of years. Like Xavier is one of the better programs in the Big East from an asset standpoint and from a success standpoint. They're going to get back on track here under Sean Miller. I'm betting that works out for the Musketeers and that they will make deep runs in the NCAA tournament because Miller's done it. Xavier cares more than others, and they're going to continue to get talent. Travis Steele brought in talent. He couldn't weave it together. Sean Miller will bring in talent, and he will.
Yep. So I think that Sean and Todd Golden were the two picks that I would have put here. But I think that throughout this cycle, there were a lot of hires that I liked. I think Shaheen Holloway at Seton Hall is a perfect fit.
Yeah, he's picked up some good players too.
Yeah, I think he's going to find a way to get that thing going, and Seton Hall is going to be at the same level it's been under Willard. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think they're going to be winning the Big East. I think that's certainly in the range of outcomes, but there's not going to be a drop off. They're going to be relevant. They're going to keep making NCAA.
Different Big East now.
Yeah, I love
different Big East. The Big East door's never been this open.
You're not wrong about that. I love Chris Jans at Mississippi State. That program, that dude with the way that he can build rosters, the way he can kind of get guys that are, I don't want to say a diamond in the rough, but kind of have a little bit of a chip on them, right? That have a little bit of stuff that they need to work on. I think that Kevin Willard at Maryland is a really, really good hire, especially because of the staff that he's been able to put together. So I like that one as well. I think I'm most interested to see what Kenny Payne's going to end up doing at Louisville.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think he's going to be able to get players. I think he's going to be able to continue to develop that program. I think that hiring Nolan Smith was really sharp. I'm a big fan of him. I think bringing in Danny Manning and making sure you have someone that's had some level of head coaching experience, which Manning has, is important when you're a first-time head coach. So I really like that one as well. I'm not going to sit here and kill anybody.
Prom. Are we not going to talk about Prom? Kind of to go along the same lines.
Is Murray State
as Fanta? We're going to leave Steve out. We're going to leave Steve out.
Grand Slam
along the same lines.
Not a high major.
As John Fanta. Dude, we might as well over the last however many years call Murray State close.
Yeah, no, I love.
He's coming back home.
Murray. I think that Archie's going to light it up at Rhode Island. I think Frank Martin at UMass is going to be. Really
I thought that was a
program.
great, not a good hire by UMass. I thought that was a great hire because
as good of a hire as they
that
could
school
make.
so much better than South Carolina. So much better. South Carolina is worried about. He made a comment a few years ago. I'll never forget it because I feel the same way living in South Carolina. It's like, hey man, we just came off a Final Four, and I turned on the radio and they're talking about third string offensive linemen. Like what? And like that's that. I get it. I get it. Where I understand where I live, but I also understood his gripe big time because it's just kind of crazy that they had success and he couldn't get that snowball going. UMass, a little bit gritty of a school, more gritty in terms of basketball players they've had throughout their history. I think he is an excellent hire, an excellent fit. I'm really happy for Frank. I love Frank. I think he's awesome.
One underrated hire in the cycle, Eric Kunkel at Tulsa. He was due for a bit of a leap. This is a guy who won 20 or more games in 6 of 7 years at Louisiana Tech. And the fact is, Tulsa's in an American Athletic Conference that is in flux. I mean, that league is in a weird state. So the point is, like, if I'm Eric Kunkel and I'm on the run that he's been on, and I really like the way he coaches his teams, I think that that's a place that he can get Tulsa going because they're in a league that's gettable. It's manageable for him to step in and start to get his guys and start to do things his way. So underappreciated hire in the cycle for me was Coach Kunkel.
Yeah, I really like Michael Lewis at Ball State for a number of reasons, but more than anything else, he is about as Indiana as you can get. He's from Jasper. He was state player of the year. He played for Bobby Knight. He coached with Brad Stevens. He's been on staff with Mick Cronin. He's been on staff with Tim Miles. Like he's a good basketball mind that lives and bleeds the Hoosier State. And I just think that he's going to find a way to get Ball State going. That's the perfect fit for me when it comes to a head coach. But listen, we've been here for almost an hour now. So
much for 30, 35 minutes and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I know, right? It's Fanta starts telling stories. Before we leave, Fanta, I need you to wrap it up. Please explain to the people what happened. You got hacked. What did you do? Let us know.
Clicked on the wrong link. Yeah, I'm guilty of clicking on the wrong link to a verified account. And somebody said, hey, you should click on this to verify your verification because we know what the blue check mark means. I fell for it. I did not check Rob's tweet making people aware that this was going around. I fell for it. I was hacked. I appreciate that the hacker had fun with it and didn't start sending out tweets selling $4.99 headphones. He tweeted out, what do people like more, Fanta or Coca-Cola? And worked with Twitter support. It took about 72 hours. It was a relaxing 72 hours without Twitter. I binge watched a bunch of chick flicks with the lady and sat on the couch and just kind of relaxed. But thank you, Twitter support, because you got me back on Twitter, and the hacker has been solved.
Hey, Twitter support, I need some help getting my blue check back. I need a little blue check. I get bad advice from Doster and Goodman. Hey man, you need to get rid of Coach on your Twitter handle. So
I never
people
said
know
that.
You're doing that.
I never said
get rid
that.
of Coach.
Everyone knew it. Everyone knew what you wanted to do that. You were worried about people thinking you were still a coach. I said, T.O., everyone knows who you are.
You definitely.
I said, T.O., you keep living the dream, baby. You keep living the dream.
Oh, yeah. Well, I changed it. Hey, Twitter, I need my blue check back. Please.
Get it back.
We need a
blue check T.O. movement. We already had give Fanta his stuff.
Get T.O. as blue check. That's how we're signing this off. Get T.O. as blue check. Let's
give me my blue check, Twitter, please.